What's up, YouTube? And welcome to the next installment of my Collecting Goals series. Today's is a little bit of a vague topic, but I just really was wanting to make a video about this. So today's Collecting Goals is all about the shooters for the Super Nintendo. And for those of you who are fans or foes of the Super Nintendo as far as shooters go, it's a pretty controversial library. There are some really good ones, and there's some that are very, very poor. So if you look at how it stacked up against its 16-bit rival, the Sega Genesis, or the TurboGrafx, the Super Nintendo really didn't fare all that well in the realm of shooters. However, I have been actively trying to get a full set of all the shooters on the system. I do believe I'm missing maybe one or two of the really common ones, but I do think I've got all the big rocks at least taken care of. So I decided to go ahead and make a video about that set today. Really looking forward to hearing some comments if there's some that I'm missing out on, but I do think, at least as far as the North American library goes, pretty much got a full set of these. So in the background you can see the boxes for the very few of these I do have boxes for. However, most of my shooters I bought just in playable condition. Some of these have pretty rough labels, and really just wanted to get the set complete without going after, you know, mint condition or anything like that with this. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the shooters on this system. So the very first one we're going to talk about is obviously the big one that is on many people's want lists. This game was a nightmare for me to find. I got it about a couple years ago. It wasn't cheap, but certainly much less than what it's going for today. And that, of course, is Aero Fighters, which was a very low production small publisher named Mick O'River, and it is a port of the arcade game Sonic Wings, which is actually a great Neo Geo game. Surprisingly, this game translated very well to the Super Nintendo. There is not a lot of slowdown issues. You have multiple pilots to choose from of different, different characteristics and different ships. And it really is a lot of fun. It actually is a very nicely done arcade port considering the limitations of the system. So I understand, the price on this is completely out of control, but if you do come across this at a decent price, it really is worth having in your collection. It's a lot of fun to play. So this one I can recommend. Next one is, like I was saying, one of my very dogged labels that I have is for Axelay, which is an interesting hybrid horizontal and vertical shooter by Konami. So thinking about that, I am much more of a fan of vertical shooters than horizontal, and to me the hybrid aspect of this game doesn't really work all that well. I would much rather just play the vertical levels in this game, and it's a little bit of a shame that they had to go ahead and do that mixed gameplay. But I understand why this game has its fans. It definitely has some nice graphical touches, and for an early release, definitely put some good effort into this game, so it's not too bad. This next one is one of my absolute favorites on the Super Nintendo, and that is Biometal. This is a highly underrated shooter in my opinion. It is a horizontally scrolling shooter, which actually makes me even more surprised I like it as much as I do, but I do think it's executed very well. Has some cheesy licensed techno music that they added for the American release. I don't believe the Japanese version has that, so if you want to chase that down, maybe the Super Famicom version is even better. But as far as gameplay-wise, this game is very solid, and definitely can recommend this one. One I cannot recommend is this game, Blaze On by Atlas. You would think that, being an Atlas game, it would have some promise, but this is one of the most slowdown and boring plagued shooters on the system. Really very poor. It was an early release, so I'm sure that's part of the reason why. And this was based on an arcade game that I have never played, so I would like to try the arcade version just to see if it's any better than this, but as far as a Super Nintendo game, this one cannot recommend whatsoever. Then we get into the first Darius game for the system. This is Darius Twin. Obviously, I'm a huge Taito fan, and this one is high on my list of Super Nintendo shooters, mainly for that reason, a little bit biased. It is a port of Darius 2, which you can also get an alternate port on the Sega Genesis called Sagaya. And overall, I would probably rather play Sagaya, but I do like the music better on this version, and it is a good shooter, especially considering the price is very low on this one. So definitely a good one to grab, at a low price. Another one that is somewhat reasonably priced is this game, Earth Defense Force by Jaleco, and it is not really very memorable whatsoever. Again, I think this was a very early release, so maybe I can give it a little bit of a break based on that, but overall, nothing really worth spending your money on. Then we get into one of the wild cards of the system. This is Firepower 2000, and I debated a little bit about including this game because it's such a strange hybrid shooter. It has tank shooting, plane shooting, and boat shooting of all things. It is still force scrolling, which was kind of my criteria for this video, so that's why I didn't include some of the run and gun games like Pocky and Rocky 1 and 2. But since it is force scrolling, I decided to include it. It is, you know, an interesting mix of concepts. It is quite a bit of fun. There's something that's just a little bit off about the graphics on this one that really doesn't make me a true fan of it, but it is a decent game. I know why this game, you know, has a lot of people interested in it, and it is a somewhat relative of the game Silkworm on the NES, I believe. So if you're into that series, you know, this is worth checking out. Another game you can grab pretty cheap is this one. This is Gradius 3, and Gradius is okay. I'm pretty neutral to the series overall. Very, very slow-paced game, which does work well for the Super Nintendo because you need a game to run at a slow pace, or else it's just going to be plagued with slowdowns. So, that being said, I understand why this game did well as an early release also, and, you know, if you like Gradius, you'll probably enjoy this game, but it's nothing mind-blowing. Then we get into one of the other unusual ones. This is Hunt for Red October. I didn't even realize until a few months ago that this is a shooter, but it is kind of a submarine shooter game and very poorly made, and it also supports the Super Scope. It's a pretty unusual game, so if it's a buck or two, I'd definitely grab it, but nothing you really need to go out of your way to get. This one is one that has gone up in price a lot lately. I got it a couple years ago before it was too high, and that is Imperium. It is a Vic Tokai game. I do like Vic Tokai stuff just because it flies a little under the radar, but this game, you know, it really has nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't really have a lot that makes it very memorable. It is a vertically scrolling shooter. Some interesting boss designs, kind of a mech design that they gave most of the bosses. But overall, like the weapon power-ups and your ship are just kind of boring. So I'm pretty neutral to it. You know, it's okay if you can get it at a decent price. But I probably wouldn't spend, you know, the going rate on this game right now. It's getting up there pretty high. I would say this one is very low production, especially compared to a lot of these. Overall, you just will not see this game in the wild very often, so worth getting for rarity purposes at least. One of the other ones I can very highly recommend is this game. This is Phalanx, and this game has this just, you know, obnoxious art that many people have talked about on the internet for years of some old man playing a banjo while your spaceship flies around in the background. So who knows what Kemco was thinking with that. However, this game, do not let that put you off. This game is a lot of fun, and I really like the level design of this game. It does move at a slow pace, but it doesn't really slow down. Like, it is well aware of what it needs to do within the technological limitations, and they really focused on giving the graphics some nice detail that you don't see in a lot of these games. So this one you can get at a decent price, and I would definitely recommend grabbing this one. Another one that is getting very up there in price, and I can kind of understand why for a few reasons, is this game. This is R-Type 3 that was developed by Irem but published by Jaleco. And this game is a tour de force of Super Nintendo graphics, really pushing some of the system capabilities to the max. It is really a fun R-Type game, which I normally don't say that too much about games in the series. And the other reason it's getting really hard to find, or expensive, is just this game is very hard to find. I really was challenged to get this about a year ago. You know, I really had hunted for quite some time and stumbled on one, luckily, at a local store. But if you do find this game, definitely grab it. It is, you know, not a very high print run game, and it's a lot of fun. Just some of the scaling, rotation, Mode 7 effects, all that kind of good stuff. Really, really cool the way they did it on this game. So, can highly recommend that game. Next one is Ridin Trad, which is a port of the classic arcade game. This game got ported to just about every system under the sun, even the 16 and 32-bit era. Really no reason to buy this version of it. It's not impressive. It has slowdown issues, and this game plays so much better on the Genesis. So if you want this game, get it on the Genesis, possibly even the PlayStation version, whatever else, but this one I would just pass on. A game that is very highly hyped lately, and one that I should absolutely love, is this game. It's Space Megaforce. If you've watched my videos for some time, you know that my all-time favorite NES game is Gunner, which is sort of a predecessor to this game by the developer Compile. And this game, to me, just doesn't hold a candle to Gunner. It has very similar power-up system, you know, nice graphics, but not great graphics. And just for some reason, I don't know, it's not as compelling as Gunner. So if you like Compile shooters, you'll probably enjoy this game, but I would much rather play Gunner or possibly even some of their other games that they put out. So understand why this game's getting high. It is, you know, has its fans, and it is also pretty difficult to find. Then we get into another one of the oddball games. This is Gunner STG, and I don't really know why they called it that, other than STG seems to be how shooting game is abbreviated in Japan whenever looking at like game listings and things like that. So this game, wow, super bland backgrounds. You will see the same background possibly even 2 levels in a row at times, and it has some good ideas, but it really has so many issues, not only with the bland backgrounds, but having a cropped screen design, you know, things like that. It probably is an arcade port, but I've never played the arcade version of this either, so just an oddball, and you know, if you can get it cheap, it's worth checking out, but not really a recommended game. Spoke about Darius Twin, or Darius Twin, however you want to call it, earlier. This is another game in the Darius series that made it to the Super Nintendo. However, it does not have a Darius name in the title. For some reason, Taito chose to call this game Supernova. However, if you like battling robot fish, as I certainly do, this game is just as much fun as the other one, and can highly recommend this one. It has some nice colorful graphics and great sound. Another one that I have a very rough label on is Super R-Type, and all of that praise I threw on R-Type 3 I cannot put on this one. This one came out much earlier, very basic, you know, typical R-Type slow gameplay. Probably was impressive when it came out, but there's so many other games for the system you could play over this one. So yeah, this game does go very cheap, and that's probably why I've never upgraded the label, because I can find it anywhere, but is not really that impressive. Another one that is not that impressive is this game. This is Thunder Spirits, and this game is essentially Thunder Force 3, but they took everything out that made it fun. So Thunder Force 3 is one of my all-time favorite shooters on the Genesis, and this is just a very sorry version of it for the Super Nintendo that to me should have been just so much more. So all those things that make Thunder Force 3 great are pretty much absent from this game, and that's probably one of the reasons why this game is very cheap. So nothing special there. And the final one that I have for this selection I pulled out today is UN Squadron, and this was another early release for the system. It's almost like all the shooters came out the first couple years, and they didn't sell well, and so like shooters barely came out beyond that. So just kind of interesting on that. This was based on a Capcom arcade game called Area 88, and interesting, you know, horizontal shooter with some nice cutscenes and dialogue and all that kind of stuff they worked into it. Pretty fun. I know this game has a lot of fans. I'm pretty neutral to it. It's okay. But, you know, I would say this one's one of the ones on the Super Nintendo you should grab. So, that being said, hopefully you enjoyed this overview of the shooters in my Super Nintendo collection. And if there are any other ones I'm missing, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll probably move on to looking at some of the games that were exclusive for the Super Famicom, and possibly also spending my money on games on systems that have better shooters than the Super Nintendo. So just thought I'd throw this video out there because I felt like I completed that subset, and please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. Have a great day or night wherever you are, and I will talk to you soon.